Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, better known as Vladimir Lenin, was born on April 22, 1870, in Simbirsk, Russia, now Ulyanovsk, into a relatively privileged family. His father, Ilya Nikolaevich Ulyanov, was an education official who worked to expand schooling across the Russian Empire. This environment of intellectual curiosity and social responsibility deeply influenced young Vladimir. He excelled academically, graduating from high school with a gold medal. However, his life took a dramatic turn in 1887 when his older brother, Alexander, was executed for participating in a plot to assassinate Tsar Alexander III. This personal tragedy radicalized Lenin and set him on a path of political opposition to the Tsarist regime. In 1887, Lenin enrolled at Kazan University to study law, but was quickly expelled for participating in student protests. It was during this period that he first encountered the works of Karl Marx and became a committed revolutionary. He continued his studies independently and later passed the bar exams externally, briefly working as a lawyer in Samara. However, legal practice did little to satisfy his growing political ambitions. By the early 1890s, he had fully devoted himself to revolutionary activity, organizing Marxist study circles among factory workers in St. Petersburg. Lenin's early political career was marked by arrest and exile. In 1895, he was arrested for his involvement in forming the Union of Struggle for the Emancipation of the Working Class. After a year in prison, he was exiled to Shushenskoye in Siberia, where he married Nadezhda Krupskaya, a fellow revolutionary, who would become his lifelong companion and collaborator. During his exile, Lenin wrote extensively, refining his political theories. Upon his release in 1900, he left Russia and lived in Western Europe for the next 17 years, editing revolutionary newspapers and building support for his vision of a disciplined, centralized revolutionary party. It was during his years abroad that Lenin developed the ideas that would define Bolshevism. In his 1902 pamphlet, What is to be Done?, he argued that Russia's working class needed professional revolutionaries to guide it, rather than relying on spontaneous uprisings. This concept of a vanguard party became central to his political philosophy. The 1903 split in the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, RSDLP, saw Lenin lead the Bolshevik faction, which advocated for a small, dedicated group of revolutionaries against the more moderate Mensheviks. World War I profoundly shaped Lenin's trajectory. While many socialists supported their national governments in the war, Lenin denounced it as an imperialist conflict and called for revolutionaries to turn the imperialist war into a civil war. When the February Revolution of 1917 toppled the Tsar, Lenin saw an opportunity. With German assistance, who hoped his presence would destabilize Russia, he returned to Petrograd in April 1917. His famous April Theses outlined a radical program: immediate peace, land redistribution, and power to the Soviets. Initially met with skepticism, his message resonated as the provisional government failed to address the people's demands. The October Revolution of 1917 marked Lenin's greatest triumph. Leading the Bolsheviks in a nearly bloodless coup, he established the world's first socialist state. As head of the new government, the Council of People's Commissars, Lenin moved swiftly to implement radical changes. Nationalizing industry, redistributing land to peasants, and withdrawing Russia from World War I through the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk in 1918. These actions triggered the Russian Civil War, 1918-1922, during which Lenin instituted war communism, a policy of grain requisitioning and central economic control. The Civil War years were among the most difficult of Lenin's leadership. Faced with multiple armies opposing the Bolshevik regime, he authorized the Red Terror, a campaign of political repression and executions carried out by the Cheka, secret police. Despite these harsh measures, the Bolsheviks prevailed, largely due to Leon Trotsky's leadership of the Red Army. By 1921, with the economy in ruins and popular unrest growing, Lenin introduced the new economic policies NEP, a pragmatic retreat that allowed limited private enterprise to revive production. Lenin's health began to decline in 1922 after a series of strokes. Though he remained nominally in power, he was increasingly isolated from decision-making. During this period, he wrote several important letters and articles expressing concern about the growing bureaucracy and warning against the rise of Joseph Stalin. In what became known as his testament, he suggested Stalin be removed from his position as General Secretary due to his rudeness and lack of caution. However, this advice was ignored by other Bolshevik leaders. Vladimir Lenin died on January 21, 1924, in Gorky, near Moscow. His death triggered a power struggle that ultimately brought Stalin to power and set the Soviet Union on a different course. Lenin's body was embalmed and placed in a mausoleum on Red Square, where it remains today. His legacy is complex and contested. To some, he is a visionary who fought for workers' rights and challenged oppression to others. He is the architect of a system that led to widespread repression. Regardless of interpretation, there is no doubt that Lenin fundamentally reshaped the 20th century, inspiring revolutions worldwide and creating the world's first communist state, an experiment that would profoundly influence global politics for decades to come.